So my first love of Ray Fiennes is Quiz Show from 1994. The IMDb plot summary: a young lawyer, Richard Goodwin, investigates a potentially fixed game show. Charles Van Doren, a big-time show winner, is under Goodwin's investigation. This movie's directed by Robert Redford, starring Ray Fiennes, John Turturro, and Rob Morrow. And also Martin Scorsese in a rare acting performance. It's fun to see him try his acting chops on for this. So this is a movie that I saw when it came out on VHS. I didn't go to the theater, but this was definitely the first movie that I saw Ray Fiennes in. I think you had mentioned the first movie he did was Schindler's List, but I didn't see that until I was
Right.
a little bit older. And I thought this he really does. I love the film, which I'll get into in a little bit, but I'll start with Rafe. For me, this really set the tone of like who this actor was and how I even see him to this day. It's I think, very attractive, but sort of waspy, upper class, classy, attractive guy. Very polite, very nice, very intelligent. Like all the things on paper that you put down as like, oh, the perfect sort of like New England rich white guy, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And he inhabits this role very, very well. And a lot of when we get into the film, you'll see that this person, because it's based on a real life event, did he basically cheated at this game show, which is not something you ever expect someone who comes from this pedigree to his dad. He was a professor. He was a professor as well, along with his dad. He had this, very famous name and pedigree and everything like that. And you would never expect him to be cheating. And that I think has helped. Ray finds this sort of persona of a good-looking guy. You're like, oh, this person, I believe everything that he says. Look at him, like he's so classy, he's so good-looking, and I think that's why he works so well in this part. And for me, at least, after seeing this film and loving this a lot as a kid, I've just always in my mind picture like Ray Fiennes as this type of person initially, and that was really hard for me. Like when he started transitioning more into the zanier character actor stuff, or even Voldemort. It's like Voldemort, like he's supposed to be, a nice New England prep school guy. Like
Yeah.
how is it? Which like, is part of the Voldemort thing. We'll maybe touch on that later. But yeah, like for me, that this sort of set the gold standard of who, in my mind, Ray Fiennes was. And actually, it was interesting because a lot of the adults I remember at the time, because he had done Schindler's List, where he plays this like absolutely evil, like super evil Nazi character, and in their minds, it was like, oh my gosh, he's not playing like bad guys anymore. I'm like, bad guys, like I imagine him as Charles Van Doren. Like that's where I first associated with him. And we'll get a little more into the movie when we talk about it, but that was why this made such an impression on me as a kid. Just again, I love the movie, but really Ray Fiennes in this. I don't necessarily like steals the show, but he's definitely the most interesting character in the movie, so I remember him the most. And what about you? Had you seen a quiz show before, and what were your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I saw it maybe, I want to say like what, 8, 10 years ago. So I didn't see it when it came out and absolutely loved it. This is a movie that I've seen a few times since because it's those movies that we often say they don't make him like that anymore,
Hmm.
right? And maybe Conclave is in that bucket,
Oh,
but I think this movie is a lot more serious and a lot more intelligent, I think, versus Pulpy. Not that
hmm.
Conclave isn't intelligent, it is, but it's in a different kind of tone, if you will.
Right.
But yeah, for me, like watching this movie with Rafe later in life, after I had watched in this list and some of his other movies, it sort of made all the sense, right? That, oh yeah, this is of course that persona of like somebody who you trust and can get away with anything, but the clues are always there that something is
Hmm.
off. I think what's important with this movie and just Ray's persona is that he's not a bad guy. He's not an idiot. Like
Right.
he's intelligent, and the movie establishes that from the beginning. Like he does know his stuff, maybe not all the way, but there's something broken in him. And I think in this case, it's really this relationship between him and his father, which I think is the driving force. And
Hmm.
again, like directorially and the script wise, that's handled so beautifully with him and his dad. Just like it's kind of a masterclass in acting, just the two of them going at each other, but also the polite and kind of loving moments they have with each other. But he's basically Rafe is like he's a big baby,
Hmm.
who's wanting to be loved and wanting to be seen and then kind of gets swept up, but there is guilt there. He
Hmm.
does ends up admitting to what he did. So yeah, it's such a fine line, if you will, of somebody who is intelligent but maybe a little bit morally bankrupt, but at the same time comes around, and that's why you root for him.
Hmm.
That's the thing with him, is that even when he's doing all these things in this movie and most of other movies, including Voldemort, there are parts of me that I'm like, go Voldemort, because there's
Oh
something
no, we'll talk
very
about that later. You're one of the Death
impressive
Eaters, huh? Okay.
about that, because it's him. He can pull
Mhm.
that off, I think, So, but yeah, the movie is amazing. Like it's just so well paced, beautifully directed, all the period details, totally in service of the movie. It doesn't feel stodgy. It feels timeless. It feels like this movie was made now or maybe 50 years ago or even 80 years ago. Like it's one of those sort of gems. I almost feel like this movie is a little bit underrated
Yeah.
in Robert Redford's career. Like Ordinary People is absolutely incredible, but this movie kind of is in that top tier for me for him because it's just so hard to pull something like this off. And then, of course, it's based on true events, but the movie plays with you because when you find out, huge spoiler alert, but this is an old movie, so I'm just going to say it, is
Yeah.
that it's not just Rafe who's been cheating. Everybody's been cheating. The whole
Right.
thing is a cheat.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the system behind all this, driven by media and ad revenue, and which again is such just so prescient, right? Like we live in the era of clickbait. What is true
Yep.
anymore anyway? So it sort of zooms out. It's no longer about what Rafe did. It's no longer just about him being a big baby and wanting his dad to love him or approve him. It's about something much bigger. And all these people are just kind of pawns in that. And of course, your mileage varies based on where you come from. Ultimately, Rafe is going to be fine. He's going to go
Right.
back. And
Mm-hmm.
within 5 years, he'll have like a new lease on his life versus I don't know what happens to Totoro and his wife.
Right.
Who
Right.
knows? But Totoro is not blameless either. He's cheating
Mm-mm.
as well, and
Mm-hmm.
he's a blabbermouth, and he's going around, digging his own grave. Doesn't treat his wife in the best possible way. So it's a very intelligent movie in that sense. Like a movie, if this movie were made now, it'll be taking sides and giving it to you all on the nose.
Mm-hmm.
But this movie just sort of lets it hang and it lets it breathe, and it's up to you for you to kind of figure out, because like always, people are gray, life is gray. Everybody's in the right and everybody's in the wrong, to varying degrees.
Right. It's the one of those movies, and I tend to kind of gravitate towards films like this anyway, where the system is the issue. And
Yeah.
we've done a couple episodes on like movies that impacted our view of America, but I think this definitely could be one
Yeah.
around. It's the American dream that is the con to all these people because it doesn't exist, but they're all cheating in their own way to try to achieve that. And yet that
Mm-hmm.
American dream is being packaged and sold to the real suckers, which are the audience, watching these quiz
Mm-hmm.
shows, thinking that this is all real and just so the advertisers can make money. And they're all these the characters that you're mentioning, Totoro and Fiennes, are all part of this game, and so is the network. I mean, they're all partially to blame in this because the system must monetize this Geritol, right, is the product and
Right.
sell forth like what the American dream exists, that you can if you're smart you'll get ahead, which is not true actually at
And
all.
in
Like
this
and
case,
this
quite literally, because it's a quiz show.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's like it's putting the whole lie of American meritocracy on display that it actually isn't true, and you're using this character that Ray Fiennes is playing, or a character, this person, right? Ray Fiennes is playing, and I think the interesting thing about him is like he's one of those. I think this was a quote about former President George W. Bush, where born on third base and think they hit a triple attitude, right? You think you accomplished something even though basically everything was handed to you. I think
Mm-hmm.
this Ray Fiennes' character is sort of realizing that over the course of the film that actually, yeah, like I didn't deserve any of this stuff, but I still want it. Like, why can't
Right.
I just go after this because of all the issues and stuff with his dad? And I think that's really what this movie to me is speaking to. It's a condemnation of the system, and then also showing, to your point, how the different classes deal with this. There's the lower class, John Turturro's character. There's the middle class, which is the Richard Goodwin, the investigator. Like they're very much middle class, and then there's the upper class, and how they're all sort of like feeding into the same lie, how it affects them in different ways, and how, to your point, at the end, like who gets to be okay? It's not Turturro. I mean, I don't know what happened to that guy in real life, but I
Yeah.
know that at the end of the movie, at least, they said that Charles Van Doren sort of got another job. I don't want to say like died like a hero, but he didn't die like in disgrace when he passed away.
No. Although they did have something for him too, I've forgotten now. I think he kind of became okay too, I think.
Turturro's character, I don't, yeah, I don't remember actually. So
They did say we should go
they
and
did
look
say,
back.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We
But
should
that's the
fact check
thing,
ourselves, but that's the
probably
interesting thing about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably varying degrees. But as you were saying, it made me think that there's also something unifying about that because they're all being kind of jerked around by the system. Of course,
Yeah.
they have different, footings from where they come and where they can go back to. But that's the beauty of the thing is that yeah, it might be a lie, but it's also kind of unifying, and
Hmm.
you can look at it from a different point of view that it pushes you to do something,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
and otherwise you could just be sitting around and do nothing, which is a lot of countries actually. So,
Hmm.
so that's the thing.
Yeah, I mean, the real villain here, to your point, I think is Martin Scorsese's character, which is basically like, the advertiser, right?
Yeah,
Who just
he's
all they want
so
to do is
good at it.
sell their like Geritol, which is probably some fake snake oil thing. Anyway, it's not like they're
Yeah,
even selling something real and helpful to
no,
people. It's a made up fake thing, which I think also is just such a commentary in this whole, hamster wheel thing that we're on called the United States, where it's not even like we're selling anything good to you. It's like a bunch of nothing. But
yeah,
I think that this movie can weave those themes in there, and not to mention also the themes of the Jewish characters versus non-Jewish
right.
characters, and there's a lot of that which is super interesting that I think this movie does very well in terms of handling. Like it's all there in the background, but they're not really forcing that in there. But there's again the people that are okay and the people that aren't in the same way. There's the wasps and then the Jewish folks in this movie, and they're treated very differently.
Yeah, definitely. And then this sort of sliding scale between, American dream average guy versus the beautiful, handsome guy,
Hmm.
what looks better? And the soup du jour changes, to some point. It's
Exactly.
not all or nothing. Because for a degree, the sweaty guy who's from the small town, whatever,
Hmm.
was something people want to root for, but then it
Hmm.
starts to plateau. So there's something very complex about it. Yes, it's about ad revenue, but it's also about human psychology. You root for that person to a point, but then where do you go from there? you
Right.
know this
Right.
happens in our lives. I felt it. I've done this to other people, not to gross degrees, but like it happens. It's also says a lot about who we are as human beings, because
Right.
ultimately those people running the system are also human beings, right? So
Right. The
but
system's bigger than them. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, but it was, it's our psychology put on the table, if you will.
Oh,
So yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, it's just they're bringing out these sides of us as humans. We have these
yeah,
things in us. You're right,
yeah,
totally. And they're just playing on those negative traits of humanity to sell their Geritol, whatever
yeah.
Geritol is. But
Whatever Jared is, which
yeah,
is
no, I
great. They
think
don't
that
even get into it. I don't even remember what it
I,
is.
I don't know. Maybe some of our older listeners might remember fondly using Geritol as a cream or a drink or an oil. I don't even know what it is.
I don't even know
They
what it is.
use
Yeah.
it, but that's not really important. But yeah,
No.
I think this movie, to your point, is underrated and sort of a hidden gem, not only in Ray Fiennes' filmography, just in terms of '90s like period biopic films. I think it's very riveting. It keeps your interest the whole time. I think Robert Redford does a great job. It's definitely as a kid, it was one of my favorite movies. Like I would rent
Yeah.
this a lot on VHS and watch it. Not only do I love movies about making TV shows, and there's that element in
Yeah.
it too. I also love, but just it's a great period drama.
Yeah. And it doesn't feel stodgy or like overly manicured. That's
Mm-mm.
why it feels very timeless, I think, the way it's mounted. Rare for biopics or period dramas. So
Absolutely.
the only thing that I felt this time was like Richard Goodwin is hamming it up a little bit. He is in a slightly different
Yeah.
movie. Like I can sort of feel again mouth. I can feel there's a lot of froth in the mouth. There's too
Hmm.
much. That was
You
my
you
only
love
thing.
looking at mouths. That should be maybe another episode we should do
I
on
kept thinking, you know
movies that
what? This
shaped our
guy
fascination with the
probably
mouth.
has bad breath because he's talking too loudly, too much, and the throat is drying up, the mouth is drying up. That's all
Oh,
I kept
okay.
thinking of.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You should have been an orthodontist, I think. Hi there, it's Alex. If you like the review and discussion Karan and I just had, make sure you subscribe to our channel, Movies That Shaped Us, to get full episodes. Every other Wednesday, Karan and I review a new release and then discuss 6 other movies made by that film's actor or director and how they shaped us. Subscribe right now or follow our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts via the link in the description below. Hope you join us for the journey.